here in Long Beach, Indiana, on the southern end of Lake Michigan. If there was one thing Sarah loved, it was bonfires on the water. She also loved this house. So I don't have a particular memory, just wanted to share that, and I'm sure she'd be loving this.
Hi, I'm Mary, Sarah's mom. Most of you know me already, I think. I was asked to say a few words about Sarah, and when I'm asked to do that, all I can think of is how mischievous she was. She was mischievous since before she could walk, and she was always in the middle of whatever was going on. Anyway, one time we were having a dinner party, and adults only, and there was no noise coming from Sarah's room. So we knew right there that something was amiss. So I went up the stairs, and as I went up the stairs, I looked down and saw toilet paper. And what she had done was gone and gotten a roll of toilet paper and stuffed the end of it in her mouth, and then crawled through the hole upstairs with the toilet paper hanging behind her. So by the time we got up there was toilet paper everywhere. And that's the kind of thing that my mischievous little daughter would do again and again. She always wanted to discover what made things work.
That girl loved April Fool's Day. I swear it might have been her favorite day of the year. And if she ever got you in an April Fool's joke, she did not let you forget it. So this year, I cannot believe she ended up getting me. She told me that she was pregnant, and it took me all of a few minutes, but in that time, she got me. And all right, maybe less than a few minutes until I figured it out. But she would have held that over me for a long time.
I have a funny story from when Sarah was probably 3 or 4. We were shopping, me and Mom and my sister, and we were in this clothing store. And I only have a vague memory of this because we were pretty little, but we were, kind of bored following Mom around as she looked for an outfit for something. And after a few minutes, she said, "Where's Sarah?" And we looked all around, couldn't find her anywhere. All right. Well, she was always kind of cheeky, so we were running up and down aisles, trying to find her. She was nowhere in the store. I'm sure Mom was starting to panic, and I was just trying to help find her. So after a long, long time, we went outside the store, and in the window, we find her posing with the other mannequins. So, yeah, she had decided to become a cheeky mannequin herself. And we had a lot of laughs about that one. Luckily, we found her. I'm sure Mom was very relieved.
One of my favorite Aunt Sarah adventures was when we went to the Stanley Hotel, which is where The Shining was filmed. I was with Aunt Sarah, Lauren, and Pierce, and we're on vacation in Colorado Springs, and we saw the Stanley Hotel, and it was closed for repairs, but Aunt Sarah offered to be the lookout while Lauren, Pierce, and I found an entrance. And we did find an entrance and went inside, explored, and we even ended up helping out other people get inside who were doing the same thing as us.
And I would like to share some of the pranks that I've received from Sarah over the years. The most recent one I remember was when Sarah came to visit me in Port Washington with Lauren and Pierce, and I think Michael was with her too. And they had just gone through Mary's house in Mequon, and they were going through some of her things, and they found this really scary, ugly old doll. And she left it on my doorstep, rang the doorbell, and they all took off running and parked on the street just to see what my reaction was of this crazy doll. Another one would be from growing up. I used to really like Cookie Monster, and I had lots of Cookie Monster stuffed animals. And I once found that her and our other friend Anne had put my Cookie Monster in the oven and turned the oven on, and he had like charred burn marks on his fur. They also once cut him open and stuck an egg inside and smashed the egg inside my Cookie Monster. And some other ones I remember were from German class, where she once took my backpack and threw it out the window, and it landed on the roof of another floor of our high school, and I had to crawl out the window to go retrieve my backpack.
Hi, my name is Lauren. I'm Sarah's daughter. Most of you probably know that. But I wanted to share one memory. I mean, you guys, all the things that you were sharing, they're so nice to hear. Honestly, it's really nice to hear some things that I didn't know most of the time. A lot of funny memories that I had also forgotten about, relived. But I wanted to say something about my mom is that she loved pool floaties. I quite literally was obsessed with pool floaties. And we always had one for every single occasion and in many different forms. And we would bring them to our vacations in Mexico or in Florida, and we could never take them back because they wouldn't fit in our suitcases. And she just said we'd leave them for the cleaning ladies of the hotel because they could probably use it. They had kids, it was fine. She just wanted us to leave them. But I also wanted to show this picture. It's one of my favorite pictures that we've ever taken on a giant swan floaty, which was iconic. If you guys know, the giant swan floaty was the best thing I think she ever bought in her life, because it had several holes in it, did not work, but we used it anyways. And that thing was probably the only thing that ever made it out of a trip or out of a hotel room. And I think we still have it somewhere in our garage. But there was a pizza one, there was a cupcake one, just pool floaties. She was obsessed with pool floaties, even though we could never take them home with us. But yeah, it's a nice little fun memory.
We were on vacation all in one house as a big family, and there weren't enough beds for Michael, my son, who was 10. So never fear, Aunt Sarah is here. She has, of course, her own air pump and, an extra pool floaty on hand. So she blows up a pool floaty for Michael, which she was very proud was complete with a cup holder, and that was his bed.
Aunt Sarah was the quintessential fun aunt. I'll always remember making gingerbread houses with her as a kid. I was probably 10 years old, and I remember her asking if I liked someone. My face must have turned so red. I also seem to recall her eating a few more pieces of candy than we were allowed that day.
Well, I recall hanging out one afternoon in Sarah's bedroom in high school and stumbling upon this notebook full of sketches. And I was reading through them, and they were hilarious. And I asked her what this was, and she's like, when my sisters and I are bored on vacation, we like to come up with potential sketches or skits that could be on Saturday Night Live. The one that I recall reading about was about this man named Sunburn Man who never wore sunscreen and always would get sunburned when he'd go out in the sun, and was just this constant shade of red. It was hilarious and definitely something that I could see Heidi, Lindsay, and Sarah doing.
Sarah had a real habit of crashing my vacations that I was on that are either with my wife or with other friends. So this was a common occurrence. It started, well, I don't even remember when it started, but some memorable ones. Our engagement, she was there. She showed up right after. One that I particularly remember, several in Colorado. Anytime I came to Colorado, she would, and it's funny, right? She wouldn't be like, oh yeah, let's meet up, blah blah blah. She would just be in the lobby at wherever I was, and so here's one. We go to London. We go to the St. Pancras in London, and I'm with Kara and her family, and we show up and check into the hotel. Well, who's next to me checking into the desk next to me? My sister Sarah. What a coincidence. I mean, you know what? It was just, I never told her this. I wish I could have, but it was great. It made me feel, especially when I'm in a place that's foreign and in London, to see my sister there made me feel great. So that was a great thing she did.
Hey everyone, I remember one time me, Sarah, and the kids went out of the restaurant. We came to the car. Sarah is trying to start the car. Nothing happened. We're trying to look. We're trying to understand what's wrong. Until suddenly Lauren is saying, hey, it's not the car. It's not our car. We were there maybe for 5 minutes. The car was open. It looks exactly like Sarah's car. Remember, we ran away, and then we looked in Sarah's car. It was funny. It happened more than one time.
I'm Sarah's cousin Peggy, and there are things that Sarah has said over the years that are stuck in my brain, and I think of on an almost daily basis. One of them was her observation that if you're ever putting your hair in a ponytail and it doesn't work out the first time, give it up. If the first ponytail attempt isn't what you had in your mind as far as what it was going to look like, you're never going to achieve it on subsequent ponytail tries. So just give it up and wear your hair down.
So we went to outdoor ed in 7th grade where we had to stay overnight in a cabin. And there was a group of us girls who decided to sneak out of the cabin. And Sarah was wearing these shiny black leggings. And you can just picture her skinny legs in those leggings running. And as we were leaving, one of the moms caught us and said something to the effect like, I see you in those shiny black leggings. And it so happened to be the next morning when we were eating breakfast in the mess hall that another girl was wearing the exact same leggings that Sarah had been wearing the night before, the shiny leggings. And that girl actually took the blame for us sneaking out. So that is just a funny memory that I have that will stick with me for a long time. Enjoy.
Hi, I'm Taylor. I'm Melissa's daughter, and the memory I have of Sarah is when Sarah, Lauren, and Pierce came over to our house, and we went downtown. There was this little area with like a gazebo, some benches, and the rocks, which were near the lake. So we were all coming on the rocks, and our mom were like talking and like just laughing, and like, don't get too close. Like you could put your feet in the water if you take your shoes off. So Lauren, there's like a really mossy rock. She was like, okay, I'm gonna climb on this one. I want to feel the water. Then she slipped into the water and just completely was like dunked into the water. It was like to her neck. And so basically she's like, oh, I needed it anyway when she got out because it was like cold. It was like a really hot day outside. And then she's like, oh shoot, I have my phone in my back pocket. So she had her phone in her pocket. So I was like, oh shoot. And then Sarah had to rush to a store to get her new clothes because Lauren's were all soaking wet. That's my memory.
Hi, I'm Molly's daughter. I knew Auntie Sarah from my mom. They were best friends. they always hung out together, so we would always be there with her. And she was so welcoming and kind. She'd always share lots of jokes and laughs and funny stories with us. One of my favorite memories that I had with Auntie Sarah was probably when we had a sleepover together and we tried making this fireplace, this electric fireplace, and it just like wouldn't work. We assembled it so many times, over and over. Like we disassembled it and we couldn't even get it to work at the end, and we just wanted to roast some marshmallows. But overall, we just went and watched the show and had fun no matter what, and just shared a lot of laughs. We also made pizza and it didn't get cooked fully, so Auntie Sarah got sick, and we just shared a lot of laughs and happy moments together.
Hey, my name is Missy White, and this is Champagne. She loved making fun of me for that. And I just wanted to share about the first time that I met Sarah. We were in youth dance together. We were probably about 10 years old, and both of us were assigned the parts of the rats in the production of the Nutcracker. And so we were just sitting off to the side, kind of waiting our turn, and there was another girl there that had a solo dance, and she was practicing very, very seriously in front of the mirror and practicing her jumps and her dance. And I just remember Sarah whispering something over to me, just kind of making fun of the fact of how seriously she was taking it. And then that was when I knew we were going to be instant friends, and we were.
Hello, I have many memories of Sarah during her high school years, stopping over at the house. Some of them include her making fun of my decorative flags and my picket fence outside our house, and her request for peanut butter puppy chow whenever she walked in the door. And then there's the story, which I won't go into details, but it involved Marissa hiding in an actual doghouse inside the kennel in the backyard of Sarah's house, and ended up with also a trip to the police station. A more recent memory I have of Sarah is when Mark retired. We received a text asking if this meant that she lost her good parking place behind City Hall for Fish Day celebrations. So Sarah-like.
My memories of Sarah revolve around the many happy times that our families spent together as our children were growing up. Many Christmases I remember Sarah, Lindsay, and Heidi. Kyle wasn't even thought of at that point, sitting around my TV watching Christmas movies, trading their strawberry shortcake dolls. Sarah was the funny, sweet, precocious one of the group. I haven't seen Sarah in years, but I'm so thankful for all of the happy memories I have.
Hi everyone, my name is Anne, and I was Sarah's roommate for a couple of years in college, and we remained friends through adulthood. And one of my favorite memories of Sarah was we met our freshman year, and she had the dorm next to mine, and we actually have made some really great friends that we all kept in touch from our college dorm. But we all got ski passes our freshman year, and Sarah had her little red, Corolla, Celica, some kind of red Toyota convertible. And it's November. We're heading into Thanksgiving break for a week, and Sarah decides that she wanted to go skiing. And one of our cardinal rules in Colorado is you don't ski before Thanksgiving. There's just not enough snow. But Sarah, we all know Sarah was such a good student, so smart. She could sometimes afford to take a day off of class and catch right back up. And she convinced me to go skiing. So we drove up to Vail and we skied. There was hardly any snow, but the mountain was open. But for Sarah, my Wisconsin friend that moved to Colorado, she thought it was like the best day of her life, being in the Colorado mountains. And for me, I was like, this isn't real skiing. There's hardly even any snow. But we had lots of other good ski trips over college and even into adulthood. So I'll think of Sarah when I ski.
Hi, I'm Molly, Sarah's friend. We're just driving to pick up a kid from camp, and we just drove by a spot that reminded me of Sarah. So she decided that she wanted to go cross-country skiing, and so she picked this place that we just drove by. It's kind of Conifer, Colorado, and she decided we were going to meet up, and she'd pick up some cross-country skis, and she went to a rental place that was completely out of the way and picked up the cross-country skis, and I met her there, and it was 0 degrees out, so cold, and there was no snow on the ground. But there was snow on the ground in Highlands Ranch where she lived, so she thought, oh, we'd be fine to go cross-country skiing. It was so cold, we were hiking for a hike instead, and we had all of our gear on, our ski gear, goggles, our face was covered because it was wicked cold. And then Sarah went back to the ski shop, and they gave her money back, and they, it was fine, it wasn't a problem because we didn't even use the rentals. But that's what Sarah was like. She just had something in her mind, and then we went ahead and did it, and she made it happen.
Hi, this is Anne. I wanted to just take a couple minutes here to tell a story about Sarah. Many of you know that we took German in middle school and high school, and throughout the years, our German kind of morphed into a language that we called dummy talk. It was a combination of German, gibberish, and the English language that I'm sure many of our family members and friends found extremely obnoxious. But that dummy talk also contributed to the formation of many nicknames throughout the years. The first of which is Sarah's nickname, which is Biga. And that was because her original nickname was Bag of Bones, because she was so skinny growing up and even into her adulthood. But that morphed into the nickname Biga. And my nickname was Ooh, which was short for Ann Veal, which again really doesn't make any sense. But those nicknames continued all the way into adulthood and bring smiles to all of our faces.
And my name is Cecile. I'm Molly's daughter, and my mom was best friends with Sarah. We all called her, all of us kids, all of her kids called her Auntie Sarah. And my mom was super close with her, and so I've known her my entire life. And basically, so we would see her all the time. And when my sister and I would fight, because we fight a lot, she would always bring up the story of her and her sister and how they would always fight. But her sister would do like crazy things, and one of the things that she would do was put her, well, I guess she did it once, was put her in the washing machine. And we always laughed about it, and the first time I heard it, I was like shocked, and it was kind of cray, but it sounds like something that would happen to me, Auntie Sarah. But yeah.
Hi, Mary. This is Karen Goodwin and the rest of the Stitt family. I've known Sarah almost her entire life. I remember when she was 9 months old and this cute, chubby little sputtering baby in Mary's arms the day I met Mary as our new neighbor in the neighborhood. And there were very few neighbors around here. And Sarah and Lindsay especially, and Heidi a little bit and Kyle a little bit, ended up growing up with my kids, Patrick and Brendan and Kimberly. There's barely a day that goes by that when I think of my kids, I don't think of Stitt kids also, because they did everything together. One of the funny memories I have of them is taking them down to the ice cream shop downtown Port. And of course, Sarah decided she wanted Blue Moon and then talked everybody else into getting Blue Moon because I said they couldn't have bubble gum because I didn't want it in their hair. So they all had Blue Moon, and it was a hot, hot day. And they were, by the time they were done, they were covered in Blue Moon, especially Sarah. It was in her hair, on her front of her dress, down her legs. It was everywhere. And a woman just looked at me and just kind of shook her head like, I can't believe it. And I had, how many kids? 3, 4, 5 kids covered in Blue Moon ice cream that I had to some way or another fit into my car and get home. And we did everything. We went to the Lego village. We did Christmas things together. We baked cookies. We swam on the beach with the kids. We did just about everything you can think of together. And I certainly will be missing Sarah especially, but I miss all of you guys a whole lot. Take care. Hugs and kisses.
Okay, so it's Lauren again. But I thought of another one as well, just as I was making the last video. So Aunt Heidi, a little bit further down, was talking about an outdoor movie screen held together with duct tape and a sheet, which, yeah, that took a lot of brains to put together on my mom's part. But there was another one where in 2020, Adelaide, her daughter, was visiting us because we were all doing online school. And my mom, at that point, we had actually bought like a big blow-up outdoor movie screen, and so we could actually watch movies on it, which was great. That eventually fell apart as well. But she was obsessed with like getting us to do little adventures things, because I think Adelaide was there and we were just bored of doing online school. She was bored of doing online work, and so yeah, she bought the giant outdoor movie screen. And we had a whole like movie night, and later Aunt Heidi and Michael came to visit us, and eventually we did that. But I think at that point it was probably broken as well. It was not the most durable thing in the world. But we had this idea, or mainly she had this idea, I just helped her contribute to it, to do like an outdoor block party. And so there was one night, only a couple neighbors came because we weren't very close with everybody in our neighborhood, but we had we put the outdoor movie screen on the street, and a couple of our neighbors came, and we just like watched an outdoor movie because of that inspiration that she had when Adelaide was visiting us. And another thing, adding on to that, because she wanted to just fill us with like fun things to do, she wanted to go to a concert at Red Rocks. And I don't know if any of you guys know who Deadmau5 is, but they're this like electronic band group duo, kind of like techno music. And so she saw that they were like the only ones playing in that night, and so she booked us all tickets to go see it, but we had no idea what it was. We didn't know who Deadmau5 was at all. And so we go and see it, and we realize it's this techno concert at Red Rocks, and we're like, whoa, this is kind of insane. I think I was maybe like 14 or 15 at the time, so I had no idea like what a techno concert was or anything that it was like. But it was also freezing cold because it was in the winter. This was another time that Adelaide was visiting us, and it was just a wild thing because none of us knew what we were doing and none of us knew what it was. But she was having the time of her life. She was jumping around, having fun, as she usually was, because she wanted us to have fun too. But yeah, that was, I think, one of the first concerts at Red Rocks that I ever went to, and it was by accident. So yeah.
Hey everyone, my name is Joe. Recently I became friends with Sarah at the beginning of this year, and I couldn't think of any other place to really film this, and had to take a moment to collect my thoughts. But where we are is the Red Rock Slide Trail. This is the last place I was in Sarah's presence. Came hiking up here with her, our friend Kelly, and her son Cannon. It's about a 4-mile hike, round trip, or a loop, and it's a very, I'd say, pretty hike, and it's one of Sarah's favorites. She goes here, it's one of her go-tos, I would say. And basically, we were walking here, and like, we thought it'd be like a long hike. Randomly, like, out of the corner of our eyes, like, Sarah's like, check that thing out. It's like, what? And we looked up, and it's this deer that was like squatting in a bizarre position, like a dog. Like, what the heck's going on? We sat there and looked at it for like a minute, and apparently it was just pooping. So it was like, took some pictures, giggled about it, and like made the hike really short because it was something to giggle about along the trail. Miss her. Be well, everyone. Take care of each other.
Hi everyone, it's Carrie again. I have something, it's not so much a memory, but just something I really admired about Sarah is her love for travel and just really taking advantage of the opportunity to travel. As a fellow single mom, I just watched how she did it, and I was like, as my son gets older, like, I'm doing it how Sarah does it. And so recently we started playing Where in the World is Biga instead of Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego. So she would send us pictures and we'd all have to guess where she was, like, because it was different all the time. It's like, are you in Brazil? Like, where are you? Are you in like Texas even? Are you in Mexico? And so it was fun. She was always going somewhere. And so it's a memory, and something I admired about her is, we always would say, where in the world is Biga?
I was just out on a walk with the dog in the woods near my house, and it got me thinking while I'm smelling all of this lovely smoky air that we're getting from the Canadian fires about some time that Biga and I spent way up in the North Woods growing up. We went to gymnastics camp up there called Lake Owen. A couple times we went with Lindsay Kruger and her sister Titi as well. But one year in particular, we went for a week of gymnastics camp, and then the second week we went for a week of adventure camp. And during the week of adventure camp, we learned how to go canoeing. And neither of us, I don't think, had ever canoed before. And I just remember getting in the canoe. It was just the two of us, and we couldn't keep up with the group because we kept paddling and going in complete circles, and because neither of us could figure out the correct rhythm and the correct side to paddle on when we were canoeing in order to go forward. So just wanted to share that funny memory.
Okay, so our family has always been kind of obsessed with hot tubs. Like wherever we are, we'll seek them out. And then it was usually Sarah who would find the hot tub first and be fully immersed before any of us. And she had a way of breaking into hotel hot tubs that we weren't even staying at, finding the towels to make, the right towels that they had to make it look like we were staying there instead of coming with your own towel, which would be obvious that you weren't. But we had this funny thing called hot tub moments. And it was that we could get anything out of anybody in the hot tub. Like secrets, all of a sudden they would open up, like you're sitting in this warm pool of water and you're all in a circle and you're relaxed. And so we just laughed our heads off and said, we got a hot tub moment out of Kyle, or, stuff like that. Hot tubs were pretty magical for getting information out. Yeah, so that was fun.
Hi, I'm Kim Goodwin. I was Sarah. Sarah was my childhood best friend. I literally knew her from the day I was born. Our moms were friends. I think of so many fond memories of Sarah and I when we were kids. We took sailing together. We went to gymnastics camp together. We climbed each other's tree houses, caught fireflies in jars. Go to the beach. We'd roll down Sand Hill on the beach, full of sand. Oh my gosh. My mom mentioned a memory about Blue Moon ice cream, and I do think of Sarah with Blue Moon, but also we would go down the Freshies and then go on to your dad's boat, and one time I loved bubble gum and I didn't want to get rid of the gum, and so Sarah told me to put it in my ear to hold on to it. And I did that. And I just think of she was just like a big sister to me, the big sister I didn't have. There's just so many memories. Tea party, playing dress up, going trick-or-treating together, sleepovers, so many sleepovers. Every time I have grapefruit, I think of our mornings after a sleepover at the Stitt house. Grapefruit, half-cut grapefruit with sugar sprinkled on top, Brighton Cruiser. I think of just my whole first 10 years filled with so many great memories. I don't think I could have had a better childhood. And that was because Sarah was in it. All of you were in it. Lindsay, Heidi, Kyle, Mary. I love you all very much, and I'm sending you a big hug from Port Washington.
Hi everyone, I'm Marissa. I'm Sarah's close friend that
You've seen maybe something about in her obituary that she helped a friend with cancer, so that was me. So I want to share stories about the things that she did when she was here, when she would visit me, when she was helping me. So when I first got diagnosed in November of 2020, she was one of the first people I called to see if they could come and help me, because I knew with her schedule and that she was more flexible to be able to come, and my boys just absolutely adored her, and the things that they would get into together are actually very hysterical. So the first time she came, there was a lot of things that occurred on this visit. She brought matching jammies for us, so that was really fun, even though she always claimed like nothing ever fit her because she claimed she was such a giant. But just so everyone knows, real people's clothes did actually fit her. We confirmed that when she got her Marissa's Rack Pack sweatshirt that she was shocked fit her. I think she always thought she was much bigger than she was. I can't really figure that one out. But so the first time she came, we have a hot tub at our house. I live in Arizona. And so my husband had gotten the hot tub ready for her because we knew that she would like to go in the hot tub. She always liked to go in the hot tub. And I don't know how this happened. I don't even really recall this, other than she told me like 50 million times. But somehow we drained the hot tub. I've seen my husband drain the hot tub. It's not something that's super easy, and it takes like a tube. I don't know, but the next morning I know that we went out there and there was no water in the hot tub. On said same trip, she was going to get Drake, who she thought was Drake. So at the time, Drake was only 2 years old, and he was in my room with my husband and was sleeping with him. And so she was going, because I couldn't lift, she was going to get Drake to lift him and put him in his bed. And for some reason, she grabbed Frank. Now, my husband is not a tiny person by any means, and she went under like this, like a forklift, and thinking it was Drake, and tried to lift him. So she actually tried to lift my husband in the air. I don't know when we stopped laughing about that, because it's as you can tell, it's still ridiculously funny to me, because I can just imagine she was like, oh, all the sounds that she would make when something would happen that shouldn't have happened. But not only that, she provided so much laughter to me during that week that she was here. We ended up going to the Scottsdale Princess. We took her there so she could see Christmas at the Princess. And we did a hotel, because every time that I called her Biga, so sorry, I'm going to be referring to her a lot as that. But whenever she would come, she always wanted to do a night at a staycation in a hotel, even though I have a pool and a hot tub, but that was always her thing. And she always liked the Scottsdale Resort. That's where we always stayed. And on that same visit, that night when we got back from the Princess, she decided at maybe 11 p.m., maybe it was even midnight. Honestly, I don't really recall. I think I fell asleep with Drake, but her and Drake decided it was a really good idea to order pizza that late at night, and she fell asleep, which is something she did all the time. She'd always be like, I'm not going to fall asleep. I'm awake. I'm not going to fall asleep. And she always fell asleep on me. And so she fell asleep on Trey instead. And so this poor little 6-year-old had to go and answer the door to room service with these 2 pizzas, and she was asleep. So I woke up in the morning to find 2 full pizzas that nobody had eaten. So she did realize that was a bad idea, and that they probably didn't need the pizzas, which I confirmed was very accurate. And then the last piece to this trip was, for some reason I was very thirsty at the hotel. I didn't bring a water bottle with me, and for some reason I couldn't figure out where to fill my water, and she just found this to be hysterical. Because of her travel that she did quite frequently, she knew where to go to get water or whatever she may have needed when she was on trips. She knew where to go. Sorry, that's my computer. She knew where to go to get water, and she never told me until the day of, and then she told me where to get water and then laughed hysterically for like 5 hours. So Needless to say that trip was absolutely amazing, and there was lots of laughter, and there was more trips to come that I'll be sharing through the series of all of the things that she did for me, for my family, for all of our friends. She was the absolute greatest friend in the world. She would do anything for anyone, and honestly, I'm so blessed that I had her in my life for as long as I did, and I look forward when I get to see her again.
I think the last time I saw Sarah was a few years ago at Thanksgiving. Maybe it was the night before Thanksgiving. The Stitt siblings were gathering, and as they so generously do, had invited me to come along and join the family. And so I hopped in my car and drove down to see them in Milwaukee. And I entered the bar, looked around for everybody, and I saw Sarah standing with Amy Jo, chatting. They were the first two I saw. And of course, everybody was there. And Sarah saw me and just lit up and was like, and it made me feel so good. She just lit up a room, and those around her, I think, just became part of that aura and light. But I guess the funny thing is, she was looking so glamorous, and I had said, "Sarah, you look great. It's so good to see you." She was wearing sunglasses inside the bar at night, and I thought, like, why does she need sunglasses at night inside? And she's like, "Oh, I know, I couldn't find my prescription glasses, so this is what I have. They're my prescription sunglasses." And that was it. She wore them. She may have found her glasses later, but she didn't care. She just was happy and looked amazing and was glowing.
Hi, it's me again. It's Carrie from high school. Others have mentioned how thoughtful Sarah was, and I just had another memory. Our friend Marissa with breast cancer came up to stay with me in Seattle to see an expert in breast cancer, and so she came up here, and our friend Molly surprised Marissa, and all the others wanted to come, but everyone had other stuff going on. And so one thing that Sarah and I had in common was we loved Instacart, and the night that Molly and Marissa showed up, the car showed up later, and I was like, "What is going on? Like, is another person surprising her?" And it was Instacart, and it was so thoughtful. She just wanted us to have like snacks and whatnot, so there were like chips and crackers, and then it just was like random stuff, like a face mask, and then a puzzle. So this was in the Instacart, and we all, none of us are really puzzle people, so it was very random, but it was so thoughtful. And just recently our friend Molly pointed out the puzzle itself is called A Moment on Memory Lane. And so I'm keeping the puzzle, and hopefully we will all do it together as friends one day.
Hi, I'm Amanda, one of Sarah's high school friends. I'd say we just really kind of reconnected the last few years when we were planning a 40th trip to Mexico, and then COVID happened, and so we had to replan it. And in that time, we just kind of started a text thread, and there's just a few of us, and every day there'd be something, someone sharing something about their day, about their family. And it was just such a nice breath of fresh air for us girls to have that and reconnect in our middle age. We hadn't seen each other for a while. We all live so far away. And Sarah was such a nice piece of that because her wit and her humor is just, I have never laughed so hard at text messages, out loud, just her humor. She could take a situation like, I think her heat broke in her house, and she could take that situation and somehow have us all like rolling on the floor laughing, like because of how she's going about like fixing it or taking care of it. And, she's so smart, she's so intelligent, she gets it done and she does it. But in the meantime, she has a lot of fun like doing it along the way. And I think that was just such a neat characteristic about her, is that she could just take anything and, take her sarcasm and take her humor and just roll with it and deal with it and, and just make everyone have fun with it. Even, she just is so thoughtful too. Like the other day I was saying I was having some nauseousness, and, she's saying, oh, you should get some ginger. And, a couple days later in the mail, I get a package from Sarah with some ginger chews, just because, that will help ease my stomach. She's just such a thoughtful friend, and we will miss her humor and her thoughtfulness all the time.
Thanksgiving 2020, and my daughter Adelaide was in her freshman year at Arizona State. This was COVID, and she actually couldn't come home for Thanksgiving because she had potentially been exposed to COVID. So think about that, your freshman year Thanksgiving. So Sarah, of course, wants to help. So she calls up her friend Marissa, who lives nearby Adelaide. And next thing we know, there's a drive-by delivery homemade Thanksgiving treat for Adelaide. This is just the kind of thing that Sarah does, mobilizes her friend network for anyone in need.
Hi there, my name is Kelly, and I've known Sarah for just about a decade. We met at Gold Resources Corp, where she was an employee and I was a consultant for them at the time, and we traveled to Oaxaca, Mexico together. No beaches there. I'm at a beach right now. How appropriate, because I know that this is Sarah's, favorite place to be, is at the beach. I know she had mentioned just a couple months ago that she was researching when she was, when all the kids were out of the house, she was going to move to an all-inclusive and just live at an all-inclusive in Mexico, which I do believe wholeheartedly she had all the intentions on doing. She had already priced it all out, and from a cost perspective, she was going to end up saving money. So Sarah had big dreams to be at her happy place. But my funny story for Sarah is when we were in Oaxaca, Mexico, we had gone out the night before we were leaving, we had gone dancing. Sarah decided to stay out. We all decided to head back. There were a couple of colleagues that stayed back with her. So we didn't actually go back to the hotel together to know that she was there. And the next morning, we were trying to knock on her door. We had to leave for the airport. It was only about a 10-minute drive to the airport, but it was about an hour before our plane was going to take off, and we still couldn't get in touch with Sarah, pounding on her door, trying to call her nonstop, and I basically threatening the hotel staff to open up her door. Leave no one behind was the quote from that. We were no way in heck going to leave Sarah in Mexico without knowing that she was safe, or at all. We just wanted to make sure that everything was okay. Sure enough, after many threats, the hotel staff gave me a key to her room. I opened it up, and it's pitch black in the room, pitch black. So no wonder she wasn't awake. She forgot to set an alarm, but she was starfished in the bed. So luckily it was dark. I just started throwing clothes at her while my other friend was throwing all of her stuff in the suitcase. And we barely get to the airport in time to catch our flight. And poor Sarah, man, she definitely was not her favorite flight that day. But, it was just kind of the main part of our relationship was leave no friend behind.
Hi, my name's April. I was great friends with Sarah. Elementary, middle school. It's really hard to post. I'm going to try to get through it without crying. We have so many wonderful memories. I feel bad that me and Sarah kind of lost contact, but at least we were Facebook friends for the last 7-8 years. My memories with her are the most memorable. I can't even tell you how much I've enjoyed the family, got to know them. I feel bad, Heidi, that you were a little older and I didn't get to meet you as much. Lindsay, TT, many great memories, vacations, Florida, the cottage in Oostburg. Unfortunately, the time your dog got the fish hook in its mouth and we had to take it to the vet, taking the bikes to Naughty Pine in Oostburg, going to the variety store, riding in car, going to Ground Round. Of course, I was always a little more weight than Sarah, but the memories are so memorable, and I can't believe that she's gone, but she's in a better place. To all the family and friends, especially to Lauren and Pierce. Lauren, watching your videos, you are a spitting image of your mother. You and Sarah, your mother, Lindsay's mannerisms just made me smile.
Sarah had decided that it would be fun to have an outdoor movie theater night. Well, she didn't exactly have the equipment for an outdoor theater, so she made it work somehow. She had a bed sheet somehow taped to something outside. She had some sort of projector, but I remember things balancing on things. I remember there was duct tape involved. I don't remember the details, but there was all kinds of jerry-rigging and balancing. But it worked. We watched Free Willy that night. Another thing, I think on that same trip, is we had fondue. Well, I think Sarah had a fondue pot, but there were, for whatever reason, there weren't a lot of dishes around. So we had shared plates, we had plastic forks, and there was one knife to share. I remember we had a system. We were, somehow vying for who got the knife. But we had fondue.
So I had to go to a fundraiser car wash this morning, and I didn't really feel up to going. And I kept thinking to myself, needles, then go to this fundraiser car wash. And it made me think of just one of the many catchphrases that Sarah used to use. We used to say, she made it up, but she used to say that she'd rather stick hot needles in her eyeballs than attend something that she didn't want to go to. So we always just shortened it to needles. Some of her other classic catchphrases were nugs. So she used to say that her hair was so greasy, she wouldn't wash it for days, that you could fry chicken nuggets in the grease in her hair. So whenever our hair was oily, we always would just say, check out my nugs. Another funny one was when we were growing up, we always used to watch Days of Our Lives. And the evil character on that show, if you ever watched it, was Sammy. And so whenever someone was doing something mean or unkind to somebody, we would always call it a Sammy. Oh, you were such a Sammy. And then one of my favorites that we still use to this day, and I just texted her a couple weeks ago, is when we were in middle school, our friends Mindy and Lindsay were chosen to go to Paris through the dance team. And Sarah and I always called Mindy and Lindsay the perfect porcelain Paris pals because they always had really great skin and were always chosen for things. They were smart, they were pretty, and Sarah and I were always just the more awkward ones of our foursome. So whenever Sarah looked pretty in a picture, whenever I looked pretty in a Facebook picture, she would just message me 4 Ps and we each knew what we were talking about. So those were some of my favorite catchphrases that I still use all the time to this day.
So me, along with, I'd say, plenty others in my family, are kind of a fast walker, not a fan of walking slow. I was in an airport recently and they had one of those really long moving walkways, and there's somebody plunked in the left lane. So I can't get through. And I thought, oh, who better that would relate to this situation? So I texted Sarah and asked, what's your opinion of people who plunk in the left lane on a moving walkway in the airport? And her response back was, I fantasize about their murder.
One of the things that Sarah and I bonded over is online dating, and it was so fun to have someone else who knew how fun or horrifying it could be when you meet someone online. We would make up nicknames for all of them, and we'd say, so how was your date with the shrink last night? Or did you ever hear back from Carrot? Or yeah, I completely ghosted that handyman. By the way, the funniest of these stories are absolutely not appropriate for public video. But she had some great insight into dating profiles, and she had something called the roundup factor. And I once told her I went out with this guy who said he was 5'8" in his profile, but that after meeting him, I felt like he was really more my height with heels on. And she said, oh yeah, no, you have to consider the roundup factor. And I'm like, what is that? I'm shorter, and Sarah always thought she was a height giant. So, she knew more about these things than I did, I guess. But she said, very matter-of-factly, like it was the truest word ever spoken, that there was a roundup factor. So if they said they were 5'8", they were most likely 5'6", but they round up to 5'8". And if they said they were 5'10", they were more likely only 5'8", and so on. And she was full of that kind of hilarious wisdom that brought lightness to online dating, which can be not fun sometimes.
When Sarah was an exchange student in high school, she had the most wonderful experience one could have. She became part of the Jimenez family, and they took her in as one of their own. Well, that sparked my interest in foreign exchange. I was too old myself at the time to become a foreign exchange student, but I decided that was something that I was passionate in and always wanted to do. So my daughter Adelaide was an exchange student, and then my family and I were able to host an exchange student from Denmark in 2019 and 2020. And it was one of the best things we've ever done. But that was all credit to Sarah and her adventurous spirit seeking out to be an exchange student in high school. And I love thinking about what an impact that had on so many people throughout the world.
When we came to visit Kobe and Sarah in Denver, Noah, who was 5 months old then, got really sick. Sarah rushed to the store to get him a medicine, and when she came back, she told us that she rushed out of the store, got into the car, tried to start the engine, but it didn't work. Then she realized she got into the wrong car. We still remember the story and laugh. When she came back, she brought him the medicine that really helped him, and this huge giraffe. It's been 8 years since, but we still keep it.
So Lindsay has a penchant for posting in the family chat pictures of herself, her family, sitting around in the living room just casually. Sometimes people are fully dressed, sometimes maybe they're in their robe, and there might be just a smidgen of undies showing, something along those lines. So Sarah would habitually take these pictures and she'd blow up just that spot. And she would say, oh, I bet Kyle has this framed. Or she would send it along to me and say, you have to show John this, my husband. Don't tell him, just show it to him.
Cousin Peggy here again. Here's another Sarah-ism. So many people, depending, I guess, on what field you're in, kind of dream about starting their own business. And in marketing, that's what my job is. I've thought about it many times. I'm sure I could do this better, or maybe I should just go out on my own. And then I hearken back to some very solid advice that Sarah gave, which is Why go out on your own and assume all that risk and responsibility when you can just suck off the corporate trough? So there you have it. I've never strayed. I've never tried to start my own business because Sarah was right. Just stay where the money is good.
So we went to Starbucks, and Aunt Sarah took me there, and Pierce and Lauren, and we all got Starbucks cake pops, and they're pretty good, and that was my first one ever. And kind of ironically, I just got a cake pop right now.
And what about the Christmas present last year?
Oh yeah, there was also a Christmas present last year. She got me a Justin Bieber toothbrush, and my dad took the gift away from me, and now it's used as my dog's toothbrush.
It was Thanksgiving 2020, and my daughter Adelaide was in her freshman year at Arizona State. This was COVID, and she actually couldn't come home for Thanksgiving because she had potentially been exposed to COVID. So think about that, your freshman year Thanksgiving. So Sarah, of course, wants to help, so she calls up her friend Marissa, who lives nearby Adelaide, and next thing we know, there's a drive-by delivery homemade Thanksgiving treat for Adelaide. This is just the kind of thing that Sarah does, mobilizes her friend network for anyone in need.
Hey everyone, let me tell you another funny story. Every time me and Sarah used to go to a Mexican restaurant, I order a frozen strawberry margarita. What she used to tell the waiter after that, by the way, can you give him a tampon with that? Every time she made fun of me when I ordered that, because it comes pink with the flower.
So I recall hanging out one afternoon in Sarah's bedroom in high school and stumbling upon this notebook full of sketches. And I was reading through them and they were hilarious. And I asked her what this was, and she's like, oh, when my sisters and I are bored on vacation, we like to come up with potential sketches or skits that could be on Saturday Night Live. The one that I recall reading about was about this man named Sunburn Man who never wore sunscreen and always would get sunburned when he'd go out in the sun and was just this constant shade of red. It was hilarious and definitely something that I could see Heidi, Lindsay, and Sarah doing.
I once reminded Sarah to bring her portable speaker when we were coming on vacation together, and she responded that that's like reminding the Pope to bring his Bible.
Hi everyone, I'm Carrie Stricker. I'm one of Sarah's friends from high school. Some of my favorite memories are some recent memories from our trip to Mexico. We took a girls' trip for our 40th, or it was supposed to be our 40th, but COVID pushed that back. So a couple memories is Sarah brought 2 huge monitors in case we got stuck there because we had to take a COVID test to get back in the US. So she had a whole suitcase just like for her monitors. She basically brought like a whole computer. But she packed all of that, but she forgot to pack like sundresses or stuff for like going out to dinner. So it was pretty funny. And then the other is I hadn't experienced the floaties yet, but we're all in the pool and we turn our heads and there's Sarah just walking confidently, unapologetically about walking with this gigantic white swan, and she does not care what anyone around is thinking. And we just all busted out laughing and then proceeded to have a ton of fun with the swan in the pool. But the last one, which is probably I think a lot of us remember, is we all took a van to the airport to fly out, and we get out of the van and all of a sudden Sarah's like, she left her sunglasses in the van, and so there's Sarah chasing after the van like, ah! And we're like, Sarah, they're gone, like, oh man. So she proceeds to ask the airport transportation people to radio the person back, and so sure enough, Victor, the driver, comes back and brings Sarah's sunglasses back to her. And I just will never forget that image of Sarah running after the van to get her sunglasses. It was so funny.
One thing that Sarah and I have in common is a dislike of air conditioning. She was recently in an Uber in Texas, and of course the air conditioning was on, and she rolled down her window in the back. And the driver looked alarmed and said, "Can I adjust the temperature? Would you like it higher?" And she said, "Nope, I'm all good. I'm just enjoying the fresh air." And I know the driver was bewildered. I love how she brought a global perspective to so many things. She told me when we were having our air conditioning conversation, imagine the people in a thatched hut in Africa comprehending Americans' use of air conditioning. Lastly, Sarah never passed up an opportunity to, we'll say, be in your face about single life versus married life. She would say, "You married folks have no choice but to turn the air conditioning on in your house, while we single folks over here get to enjoy a nice warm house with fresh air."
When I was a kid, Sarah and her friend Lindsay Kruger used to scare me and pretend that they were Freddy Krueger, or that Lindsay was, and I think they got a great kick out of that. I personally am traumatized for life and can no longer see Freddy Krueger without having PTSD flashbacks.
When I came to visit Sarah with my exchange student Anna Sophie, we walk into her house and playing on the TV is Friends, the TV show. Well, this was one of Anna Sophie's favorite shows. Sarah had somehow figured this out and had it on the TV when we walked in. What a welcome.
Good morning. I just dropped my kids off at summer school, and it just reminded me of one of the many times over the years that I had to consult Sarah to help me translate for one of my students in Spanish. So one year I had a student that came, I believe he was from Guatemala, and he didn't speak any English, and he was in my summer school reading class. And I was just concerned after a couple days that he was homeless. I didn't know where he was staying. We didn't know who he was going home with. And so I called up Sarah and put her on speakerphone and had her translate with the little boy for me. And it was very, very helpful. He was probably really confused who he was talking to. But it turns out he was okay. He was staying in a hotel. But that was just one of the many times that for my teaching career, that I had used her services to help me translate or help students that didn't speak English.
William, I need to tell you that when you see Auntie Sarah in heaven a really long time from now, she is going to be ready and waiting for you to give you some grief. When William was 5, we all had the delight of hearing him ask if anybody had farted. Now, if we can all picture this word in a delightful Australian proper sounding accent from a 5-year-old, it was among the funniest things that Auntie Sarah had ever heard. She gave you grief then, and I'm confident she's going to be continuing to give you grief for a long time.
I'm not sure if I'm the only one who would receive homemade cards for Sarah, but Sarah was known for her handmade cards with stick people, typically drawn as some of the illustrations. And I recall receiving a birthday card in the shape of a peanut one year because I'm allergic to peanut butter, and she always would comment or make some funny comment about that I was making up my allergy. And I also recall her sending me a homemade card when I had a bad breakup with a boyfriend with some stick people, and it made me laugh so hard.
We were on vacation. I think we were in San Diego, and a group of us rented these bikes, these tandem bikes. They're like big bikes with a big basket. So I'm on it with Michael, who's like 5. And so I'm chugging along, and I'm thinking that, I'm a decent biker. Well, Sarah and whoever she was with are just cruising past us. Whoever else in the group, they're cruising past us too. Meanwhile, I'm chugging along. I'm chugging. I'm thinking, Heidi, you got to bike harder. What is going on here? So finally, then a senior citizen couple came chugging past us. I'm thinking, all right, Heidi, you have really got to get better at your biking. Well, finally we decided, I think this was Sarah's idea, we decided to pull over and see if there was something amiss. Oh, the emergency brake was on my bike the whole time. So I will tell you, there's a picture of that. This was in 2016, I think. Oh, I don't think 6 months has gone by since that, where Sarah hasn't reminded me of this. She talks about it all the time. She thought it was quite funny.
When I was a kid, Sarah and her friend Lindsay Kruger used to scare me and pretend that they were Freddy Krueger, or that Lindsay was, and I think they got a great kick out of that. I personally am traumatized for life and can no longer see Freddy Krueger without having PTSD flashbacks.
This is a quick one that I just thought of. But when we were freshmen in high school, we all went down to Summerfest, and we went to the Hootie and the Blowfish concert at Summerfest. And none of us were really big fans. I'm not sure if somebody had free tickets or what, but we were down waiting for the concert to start. And all of a sudden the band comes out and Hootie starts singing, and Sarah goes, "Hootie's black?" And we were laughing so hard because just the way that she said it, and she had no idea.
So board games at the Collins household are always eventful. It starts with finding the game, figuring out what pieces are missing, taking an inventory, and figuring out what do we need to do to substitute for our missing pieces. It usually involves finding some sort of implement, and Sarah always made it work. One of our favorites is Say Anything. So one of the questions one night was, what would Pierce most like to throw off a building? And the options, everybody had submitted their option that was playing. The options were an egg, a bouncy ball, a rugby ball, or Lauren. Take a guess who submitted the last option. One of the other ones that we really liked was Would You Rather? And that was great to play with the Collinses because they would come up with things like, would you most rather like to perpetually smell BO or a skunk? Or would you rather kiss someone that's a smoker or choose tobacco? So that also makes me think of, I remember one time we were there having a bonfire and some neighbors came over, and there's this tall neighbor who had, I think, played European basketball. Only at the Collins' house would you get into a discussion with a neighbor who you had just met that night about European BO.
Hey everyone, I remember the first time I met Sarah Hummus. Really like that. She asked me, what's the ingredients? So I told her everything, but I forgot how to say in English the main ingredient, which is chickpeas. So I told her, pieces of hummus. Since then, every time we're together and someone mentioned hummus, she made fun and say, made of pieces of hummus. She loved that.
We were at an Ethiopian restaurant in Denver, and so it's pretty authentic. There's not a lot of English around. So Sarah gets up to go to the bathroom, comes back and tells us, oh gosh, guys, I went in the wrong bathroom. I think she realized pretty quickly after what her mistake was. But so a few minutes later, Pierce has to go to the bathroom. This was even in 2019, so a little bit ago. So Pierce comes back and he says, Mom, why did you go in the bathroom with an M? To Pierce, it was pretty clear which was the right bathroom.
I would like to share a high school memory of Sarah. I'm sure many of us remember Sarah's high school car. She had a turquoise Saturn, and we were also excited because she was the first one of us to get a car. And we used to cruise down the streets of Fort Washington. And in the car, she had one tape, and it was a single. Remember when they would make singles of cassette tapes? And it was to LL Cool J's Doing It. So we would cruise the streets just listening to Doing It on repeat over and over. And also in that car, we used to drive to lunch every day. When we were seniors, we could go off campus for lunch. And there was so many of us that we used to have to shove Marissa into the trunk of the car because she was the only one small enough to fit while we would drive in Sarah's turquoise Saturn to Subway every day for lunch.
Last year we were out to eat, and I ordered a kitty cocktail, and I was very excited about the maraschino cherries. And then we got Pierce sitting right next to me. He took the cherries off, and I didn't even know. And he put it on my like the stick where you hold the cherries, on my sister's plate, so he framed her. I don't know, Mom, did Pierce eat the cherry?
Yeah, Pierce ate the cherry, I think.
I know. I was just sad, and
I think you still want those cherries.
Aunt Sarah, I do still. And Aunt Sarah, I think, made Pierce one of those guys that just does that. But and then also one time when I was in Colorado, we were watching a movie called Free Willy, and I fell asleep in my chair, and I tipped over, and Aunt Sarah's been teasing me from that ever since.
Quick one here. Sarah was the only person I've ever seen swim in Tampa Bay proper, like in the bay. You guys that are coming here for the celebration, you'll understand when you see Tampa Bay, you will not want to go swimming in it because you can't see to the bottom, and the water is 1,000 degrees and it's full of sharks and stingrays and all sorts of things. You do not want to go swimming in Tampa Bay. Go swimming out in the Gulf, wherever. You know, beautiful water out there, maybe on the beach in Tampa. But she would just jump off the boat. And I have several videos of this right into Tampa Bay. Thought it was awesome. Every time she'd come here, oh, let's go swimming in Tampa Bay, I would just sit on the boat while she would just swim around the boat in circles.
Last year, to celebrate Lindsay's birthday, which is of course a national holiday, Sarah found us this yoga silent disco event. Only Sarah would find this. It was so much fun. It was on the beach in Davis Island in Tampa. So we were having a great time. It was not a water-based event. We were wearing yoga clothes, and it was super hot out. The water was really warm, not particularly inviting. We were supposed to be on the beach. Next thing we know, Sarah dove in, clothes and all. She's the only one in the water. Somehow she manages to get herself in any body of water that she is around.
Last time Karen and I visited Sarah at her house in Colorado, she was very excited to show off her fire pit to us, her outdoor fire pit. It was a relatively cold night in Denver, and so we get back from a wedding and we say, yeah, let's fire up the fire pit, let's get going. And so I said, Sarah, do you have any logs? No, hadn't thought about the logs. So her idea of a nice fire pit was one of those little tiny fire starter logs you put in your fireplace inside that was about that big. So her and I and Kara were huddled around this fire with Dookie, trying to stay warm from about an inch long fire starter, which is not actually wood.
So last night for dinner, we were having some salmon avocado thing, and Adelaide put sriracha mayo on hers. And Michael started to tease me about it. There's only like one food that I don't like pretty much in the world, which is mayonnaise. And Michael started to, and then he stopped and he's like, Mom, you gotta do a video about Aunt Sarah on the pop socket. And so when she had come for Christmas, she gave me a pop socket that said, I love mayo for my foods or for my phone. So I made myself keep that on my phone for a while. And seriously, every time I looked at it, it was like, oh, Sarah. I made myself keep it. So I'm glad I did. But I said the beginning of this part too, because I love it that there are so many ways that people do. You know, it was like all of a sudden Michael just thought of Aunt Sarah when he saw that mail last night.
And had my first reunion after sort of childhood, teenage years with Sarah in May of 2004 in Miami. John and I got married in Miami. It was our wedding, and Lindsay was coming to our wedding, and her plus one was Sarah, and I believe she was living there at the time. And I just remember her and Lindsay coming in, and I could not believe how tall she had gotten. She was so striking and lovely, and at the time bared a very close resemblance to Britney Spears.
All right, we all know about Sarah and the pools, right? So she was somewhere recently, and I don't know, the pool towels must have been in short supply, or maybe she just, wanted that luxurious feel of having extra pool towels. But she was super proud that she'd figured out this whole process for getting extra pool towels. And she said it involved a contraption. It involved hiding the towel in the safe when the maid came, and various other things. She had this whole process down, and it worked. So we also were coming for this vacation to Tampa, we had just been talking about the pool that we have in our Airbnb, and she said, oh, we got to remember to bring tools in case we need to get in there and crank up the heat ourselves. Warm water is always a priority. The other thing is her swim spa. So she had this thing installed in her house recently that's like, I haven't seen it, but apparently a cross between a hot tub and a pool, like, I don't know, giant hot tub, small pool type thing, where it can be either hot or warm, and I think you can like do resistance laps in it. But so it's like a big thing, so it had to be approved by the HOA. And so she went in there the first time, and she knew that this was like high stakes. And so she was super prepared. She had like looked into all this stuff. She had her whole proposal down, and I think she was really organized about it. And they said no. So most people that would have been end of story, but no. She came back for round 2. She did all this stuff. She like reworked her proposal. She revised things. She also went in there preparing to butter them up. She had it all down as to how she was going to sell it. And she did. She got it. So she got it installed not too long ago. And I know she and the kids were really enjoying it.
I've got a few of these. It's just so hard to put all these memories into one video. And I think you all have done such wonderful jobs. And interestingly, I think we all share some of these memories. Maybe we weren't together, but like eating Blue Moon ice cream, I am definitely sure we ate so many cones of Blue Moon and had competition. Who could eat the slowest? Which is a bizarre little game we made up. In fact, I think that was Lindsay. Lindsay on our way to gymnastics, or not on our way back from gymnastics. and we'd stop this place in Cedarburg and get our ice cream, and we'd sit in the back of the station wagon and eat our ice cream cones on all the way back home. And for some reason we thought it was such a good game to see, or maybe it was Lindsay who thought it was such a good game to see who could eat the slowest. And let me tell you, it got so messy, as you all were talking about. Or Mrs. Goodwin, you were talking about the mess we made was real. I do remember having Blue Moon ice cream dripping down our arms, our faces. But the funny thing is, Sarah and I didn't like this game as much as Lindsay, and I think we would finish our cones first, and Lindsay would be sitting there with this ice cream just flowing down and out of the cone and around her arms, and making, I'm sure, Mary's life a little more challenging.
Hi, I just wanted to share more of a sweet story that I have of Sarah from a side that I hadn't really seen of Sarah before. Shortly after Lauren was born, Aaron and I went down to visit Sarah in Palm Beach, Florida, and she was around 3 months old at the time. Mark was in flight school, and Sarah had Lauren on her own quite a bit. She didn't have any family or any friends around. She was the first of our group of friends to have a baby, so I know she was doing a lot of figuring out all of the things just completely on her own. And I just remember seeing a side of her that I hadn't seen before. She was very calm, very nurturing, very organized. With Lauren, very protective. I found a picture of Aaron holding Lauren when we were down at the pool. We spent a lot of time taking her to the pool, playing tennis, taking her on walks, and it was just a really nice vacation, and we were really excited to meet Lauren. And like I said, just being a side of Sarah that I hadn't seen before, and she was a really, really great new mom.
I think one of the things I admired most about Sarah was her ability to really live life to the fullest and find adventure wherever she was. And so many times I'd get a text that would say, "Greetings from London," or "Good morning from Mexico, look what I'm doing today." And it would be some video of her ziplining across a jungle somewhere. And I just think, in her memory, I think Live Like Sarah is something I really want to carry forward and embrace that mentality and bring some of her free spirit into my life, because that was something I really admired about her.
Hey everyone, let me tell you another funny story. Every time me and Sarah used to go to a Mexican restaurant, I order a frozen strawberry margarita. What she used to tell the waiter after that, by the way, can you give him a tampon with that? Every time she made fun of me when I ordered that, because it comes pink with the flower.
Last year we were out to eat, and I ordered a kitty cocktail, and I was very excited about the maraschino cherries. And then we got Piers sitting right next to me. He took the cherries off, and I didn't even know. And he put it on my like the stick where you hold the cherries, on my sister's plate, so he framed her. I don't know, Mom, did Pierce eat the cherry?
Yeah, Pierce ate the cherry, I think.
I know, I was just sad, and
I think you still want those cherries.
Aunt Sarah, I do still. And Aunt Sarah, I think, made Pierce one of those guys that just does that, but... And then also one time when I was in Colorado, we were watching a movie called Free Willy, and I fell asleep in my chair, and I tipped over, and Aunt Sarah's been teasing me from that ever since.
Hello everyone. We are thinking of you as you gather to remember Sarah.
We met with Sarah only a few times, but each of those times was special. The first time was, of course, at Ben and Lindsay's wedding, where Sarah and our daughter Hannah made a presentation, a dramatic presentation about how Ben met Lindsay. It was fun, and it set the tone for subsequent memories and meetings of Sarah. I also remember a wonderful Christmas that we spent together in San Diego with Mary and the family. And I also remember at another Christmas, though I'm struggling to remember which Christmas, Lindsay on the phone to Sarah, who was wanting to make gravy for a Christmas roast for Lauren and Pierce, but had no idea about how to make gravy, neither did Lindsay. So I was struggling to translate what would be Australian ingredients into American ones so that Sarah could make a traditional roast for their Christmas lunch. Those are just two memories. You all have so many. We wish we were there with you today, but we are sending all of our love to you all from Perth in Western Australia.
Okay, so my sister likes to take all the credit for me meeting my husband, Ben. And yeah, she has reminded us frequently over the years of how she was our personal matchmaker. So the story goes, I was staying with Sarah for the summer in Highlands Ranch. And she had just started dating this guy, Joe, and they were going to go out that night. And she said, come on, Teeny, you should go with us. We're just going to go to the British pub, down the way. And I was like, no, I think I'll stay back and get in my jammies. And she's like, nope, you're going. And when she told me I was doing something, I didn't have a choice. I was doing it. So I said, fine. And I put on jeans and this top that I thought looked good on me and did my hair a little bit, put on some makeup. And she goes, good. And then I think she told me to straighten my hair, which she always told me to do because she thought it looked good straight. And that's funny because in recent weeks, she was wearing her hair completely naturally wavy. So I think she was trying to be a bit like me. We were very competitive all the time. And anyway, I think I did straighten my hair that night. And she goes, you never know. You might meet your husband or something. You have to come out with us. So that was a little bit of serendipity. And so we went to the bar, the British pub, Lansdowne Arms. We have since been back to the site to commemorate that meeting. But we're there at the bar at our table. It's getting pretty late. It's close to midnight. And she notices these two guys, couple tables over. And she's like, hey, yeah, I think we should bring them over. So she goes over in her absolutely fearless way and says, come on guys, join us, come to our table. We soon find out they are not American. And she said, if you're British, you can leave. Because we all know how she feels about British people. And I think they took a little bit of offense to that. Australians don't really like being called British. Probably likewise. But anyway, she roused up a conversation, as she always does, and I was way more intimidated. And Nick and Ben ended up joining our little group, and Ben and I started talking, and he found it fascinating that I was studying biology, and he's like, oh, maybe she's kind of a smart nerd. And we ended up hanging out with them the whole rest of the night, roasting marshmallows, making s'mores outside, and talking about Winnie the Pooh. Not sure how that came up, but I definitely remember a lot of Winnie the Pooh. And Sarah grilling Ben about his age. He was 29 at the time, and I think she was guessing he was older, maybe. But yeah, so after that, I got Ben's business card, or Nick's business card, and I Facebook friended him like the next day. And I remember thinking and feeling without a doubt, like 100%, you know, when you get those feelings, when I saw his name on the screen and friended him, I knew that I was gonna marry him. It was like something about his name. So that was pretty cool. I didn't know when or, you know, how that would develop, but we ended up FaceTiming and Facebook messaging every single day from then on. Every day we would do it, just even if we only had time for like one line. Yeah, so there you go. I guess she has a lot to play, a big part to play in that story, and she'll always carry that with her, I'm sure.
I've never done one of these, and I'm totally late, but I'm doing it anyway. I'm Kate McRoberts, so I've known Sarah almost my entire life. My brother John is married to Heidi, Sarah's sister, and they've been together forever. We were 9, I think, when they started dating in high school. So Sarah and I basically grew up in like parallel families, watching the two of them and always commenting to each other on how ridiculous they are. Like how ridiculous my brother is with Heidi's family, and vice versa, like all the cool things we loved about Heidi, because I have 3 brothers and I didn't have any sisters. So kind of always grew up with Sarah. I still haven't wrapped my head around the fact that I'm doing this video and she's not here, but we always had really good talks, like again, just kind of as siblings looking in. We had talks about being good aunts, especially when Patrick, Ryan, and Adelaide were little, because we were kind of growing up at the same time. She had kids before me, so we talked about kind of all things momhood and how crazy it was when we had kids. Kind of we always thought of ourselves as these 9-year-olds, kind of with our, you know, our sister and our brother dating, and that was, you know, how hilarious it was in high school that they were boyfriend and girlfriend. So I will miss those conversations every time that we kind of got to see each other. It wasn't often, but when we did, we always have really, really good conversations, and I'll always remember her laugh and how she always had a really funny take on things, and I'll miss that about her.
Hi everyone, it's Marissa again, Sarah's close friend and the one that she probably helped the most. I wanted to share Adventures in Babysitting Part 2 because you thought the last one was funny. I've been waiting to do this one because it's a doozy, and I have to actually read some of it from her excerpt on my page, my cancer page. If you don't know it, it's Marissa Garcia Cancer Support page. Sarah's on here quite a bit, but I wanted to read to everyone her Adventures in Babysitting Part 2. This was last February, so she wrote this February 9th. So that's how it starts. Auntie Sarah is in the house this week. If anyone knows me, they know my language of love is offering my time and love and humor, doing all of that too, or trying to help our gal. I'm the gal, I guess. A few highlights from her, and she put quotes, helpful trip so far. She's been told no 4 than 14 times. You're doing it wrong by both boys. At the time last year when she was here, they would have just turned 7 and 4. 7 and 4. Okay. This includes driving them places using her phone GPS versus a toddler verbal GPS. She did right, which in this case is Trey. It's more likely more accurate. which is factual because my dad has a great sense of GPS, like navigation, GPS. So do I, and so does Trey. Sarah did not. Then she got apparently in trouble from the boys not knowing how to ask Siri in the car how to get to the nearest McDonald's. And she's trying to tell them, like, this isn't my car. Like, I don't know where things are. They were oblivious, and they're like, figure it out. She also slept in the room. I don't know why. So this was another complaint they had for her, that she was asking for 1/4 of a corner of a blanket in their group snuggle fort. And then she writes, "Yup, I slept with the boys." Playing dead in bed when I hear them begin to stir so that I can snooze for another few. This includes fake deep sleep breathing, along with fake paralysis when a toddler hand was placed on my face. Not allowing Drakey to scramble his own eggs for breakfast on the floor. I've never let him do that either, so I don't know where he was getting that one from. Although she was the yes aunt, so I'm thinking that's what it was. Apparently she messed up their toaster strudels. This was funny. Agreeing to help them campaign for a baby dog and bunk beds, despite Dad being vehemently against both. Still true a year later. This one was a man yelling at her, so it's not as funny. The boys weren't in the car. That was quick. Okay, car convo. This is my favorite part, and this is the end. A plethora of mess-ups, she said, were done here. One was talking about how helicopters sometimes crash. What the heck makes me say that? Apparently Sarah said that. Then that leads her to chatting about the Kobe Bryant accident, and the follow-up questions being, who was with him? How? So kids sometimes die too? Heck no. They never die. This was an isolated incident. Look, McDonald's. Want to watch whatever you want tonight? Here's a sucker. Do Mom and Dad know people die in helicopters? No, they do not. This was Adventures in Babysitting Part 2.
Hello and greetings from Tampa, Florida, our 5-bedroom Airbnb oasis. While we will begin to be telling you more stories about our one and only Sarah Collins, aka to this group, Biga or Bees. One story I wanted to share about Sarah, or as I called her, Biga, was just the amazing friend that she was. There was a time, I want to say maybe like 7 years ago, I was having a really hard time at a job. I had gotten let go, never been let go before in my life, wasn't there very long, and I get a call from Sarah. And it was really odd that she was calling me at this time. It was just a weird coincidence. And she literally said to me, "Are you okay, Bona?" And I said, "No. How did you know that?" And she's like, "I don't know. I just had this feeling I had to call you." She got on a flight. This was a Thursday. She got on a flight the next day, spent the entire weekend with me. Kobe was with us as well. That's when I met Kobe. And honestly, we had the best 3 days together. And it made me realize, know the deep friendship and love that we had for her and that she had for all of us. So she was really, would drop anything to do anything for us. So just wanted to share that piece about Sarah.
In the last week, when I have been thinking of Sarah, I find myself remembering her as a little girl. I met Lindsay and the Sitt family when I was 7, so Sarah was 4. And I actually barely remember life without the Sitt siblings because they've been a part of my life for so long. But Sarah, she was always hanging around. She was tagging along. She wanted to do whatever Lindsay and I were doing. And sometimes we let her and sometimes we didn't. One year, she texted me for my birthday and she showered me with compliments. You know, happy birthday to the most fabulous, jet-setting, successful, kind people I have the pleasure of calling friend. And then ended it with, even though you and TD used to kick me out for trying to play Cabbage Patch Kids with you, I forgive you. And you know, you can just like see her deadpan face with all seriousness saying that to your face. But I think somehow I knew this precocious little sister would end up to be my friend and personal cheerleader. If I was having a rough day at work, she'd say, screw them, you're better than they are. And when I finally got the job that I had been wanting in New York and was able to move, she was nothing but excited and she wanted to know all the details. And she'd say, you're living your dream, you're going to be Carrie Bradshaw. Because Sarah not only loved living her own life to the fullest, but she wanted everyone to know that feeling. And she was truly in your corner.